what made it time for you to retire or step down now?
I've been working in synagogues and Jewish agencies and related settings since I was a teenager. My first job was as a kid in the rabbi's office, running errands, being kind of a gopher, typing letters, filing things, but having a look at what rabbis do. And I was a youth advisor in college, and then I went to work for the Reform movement after college, and then I worked for the Jewish camps and youth programs of the movement. It was an exciting time for me to just turn the page and say, what's next? I had no idea that I would retire when I did. As you may know from seeing my bio, I got terribly sick, and I was not expected to ever reach remission from a very serious cancer. When I got to remission, almost 2 years ago, I didn't know how I'd feel 8 or 9 months after that. But what I started to feel was as incredible and as exciting as this work is, especially this endeavor with Mishkan Or, I didn't feel I was living equal to my respect for the bonus time I had just begun to apprehend. And I want to continue to be a rabbi and continue to be of counsel to this congregation and support in various ways. But by retiring, I'm able to look at the wider array of things and really make the most of bonus time. I'm very grateful to be alive. And I think what I recognized was I had saved to a point where I didn't have to be working full-time anymore. So what was I doing that? So I announced near the end of 2024 that sometime in 2026 I'd retire, but to give the congregation plenty of time to plan, and as I said earlier, to stay as long as needed on a full-time basis. So I'm just at the beginning of that, and the number one question I'm asked is, how do you feel? And the answer is, a lot better rested. It's not like the world has gotten simpler or if things don't ever keep me up. It's the kind of rest that comes when you can exhale after you're finished with a commitment and consider carefully, what do I next want to do? Whereas when you're working full-time and serving congregation with the demands that that this congregation would have, you're constantly running behind. You can barely catch your breath. So I'm feeling better rested.
That's great.
Yeah. I first understood that becoming a rabbi was something that you could choose, not just something that you knew already somehow. When I was going to Jewish summer camp, and teachers and people who were involved in our Jewish youth movement were rabbis and educators and cantors, and I discovered that they were people first, who then chose a career, and there was a seminary, and there was a process. And then when I got to understand that, and I was learning so much in that setting, I came back, I took a job in my rabbi's office. And I explored it pretty intensely around the time I was 16 or 17 years old. And after overthinking about it for about 9 or 10 years, lickety split, went to rabbinical school. I wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do, but I went to work after college, full-time in a Jewish setting to see what that was like. I went to get a master's degree in that kind of work. I went back into the field for a while and did 2 different jobs. And only when I was sure that becoming a rabbi was the right path for me. I became a very driven rabbinical student because I was much more sure and mature to the task. This retirement is coming. Roughly, it marks 40 years of working in the Jewish community, even though you look at me and think, well, you were a teenager when you started all that. But yeah, that's the way that my life has been organized, even when I was a teenager. And a lot of the prime influencers before I went to study at the Hebrew Union College or had other pulpits previous to Cleveland, a lot of those influencing parties, they invested in me. They cared for me. They were the sustaining presence beyond my parents or other loved ones that was really invested in my growth. And I decided to become one of them. And that's been really the soul of my rabbinic work, has been in mentoring young people and in helping open doors with them and see them open doors for me and grow from that. And I've done a lot of different exciting work in my career, but I would say for a long time I've said that mentoring of young people has been the soul of my work.
So that leads me into a really nice next question then, which is outside of Mishkan Or, we'll talk about that separately in a minute, but what are some other proudest moments of your career that you would like to share?
Sure. Maybe I could just address it as highlights.
Yeah, sure.
Because pride can fluctuate. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes your moments of pride are the ones that get you into trouble because you got too busy thinking about how proud you were, rather than just the quality of of the work that you got done. Previous to our founding Mishkan Or, which was an exciting enterprise, in order to get us here, we had a very thoughtful process of exploration to consider whether or not partnering or merging was going to occur. But once we voted yes, both congregations, I'm zeroing in on something here, the opportunity together with Cantor Vladimir Lapin, Rabbi Eli Mobam, and Rabbi Josh Caruso, together with Cantor Sarah Sager, longtime part of Anshe Chesed Fairmount Temple, we very carefully, creatively, and thoughtfully led our community through a series of rituals that could help them prepare for the transition, because it's such a big change. We were essentially taking Cleveland's longest Jewish story continuously, which was born in that congregation, and embedding it into the future history of a new congregation, and departing from its home for the fourth time in its history, but it's home for 60 plus years. I'm very proud of that work. It doesn't come up in everybody's career, but in my opinion, it's going to more. In other words, whether it's through mergers or other kinds of new opportunities that are taken, I think that that kind of work of helping communities understand that buildings are temporary, but they do, they do contain so much of our connections and our values and our histories. Oh God, we ritualized it in multiple ways. I'm extremely proud of that, and it was a true collaboration of our team. That's been a trademark of my work throughout my rabbinate. I've never felt that, no matter what station I was on the team, that if somebody else gets a win, that it's a minus on me. A win for the team is a win for all of us. I started as a rabbi in Baltimore after rabbinical school. during the medical school, you have student pulpits and things, so I had some interesting experiences there too. But in the course of my full-time career, I worked in Baltimore, then I worked in Northern Virginia, so those were 3 years, and then about 6 years, and then the bulk of my career has been here in Cleveland, where I served the Anshe Chesed for 15 years, and then Mishkan Or essentially for 2 full years. But it's all they all kind of wind up together. You don't at some point in there start saying, well, which portion of my job is which. You're just leading people forward. I had I want to say here in Cleveland, in addition to the work embedded inside the synagogue, is the organizations and the initiatives that have grown throughout the community. So this June, the Greater Cleveland Congregations will be celebrating its 15th anniversary. Rabbi Caruso was the founding chair of that organization. I was there with him, helping and supporting him, and I'm so proud of Josh's work, along with all of the other clergy and leadership involved. But I succeeded him for a couple of years as a co-chair of Greater Cleveland Congregations. And so I worked closely with Pastor Richard Gibson of Elizabeth Baptist Church and multiple places all over Cleveland in strong alliances around criminal justice reform, gun violence, healthcare access, education. To be able to make that kind of difference, that's been really great. When I served as a rabbi in Northern Virginia, I got to a community where there were already the seeds planted and some of the initial years of interfaith dialogue with a Catholic church that was next door to our congregation and a growing mosque that was maybe a mile and a half away. We cemented that, grew it, spent more time, tended to it, and realized there's only so many dialogue programs you can do. You have to start taking on projects together, and then the dialogue emerges from it, you know? Talking about talking is not as effective. And I made a partnership there with a prominent imam at this growing mosque where we were able to really advance the ball on that. And it was widely recognized, but I will share an effort of this. The work that we did when we first started it, we got some inquiries from the press that I pushed off. So the example is that because we had been doing some more projects together and the mosque was growing, on Fridays when Muslims have their Jummah prayer, which is like their weekly congregational committed prayer, you leave work and you go to wherever the nearest place is that they're holding worship early afternoon on Friday. Well, the place in Reston, Virginia, where they had been praying, got closed, and nobody was willing to host them out of Islamophobia. Conversation started between one of my members and one of theirs about, well, maybe the synagogue could be a place to host it. And the idea was brought to me, and we nurtured it, and we thought about it carefully, and we began it. Just one of many sites where they had it, but it became their most popular site. And the Washington Post reached out to me and said, we'd like to come do a story. And I said, I'd love for you to do a story. Let's talk in a year. Let's not drop something by making it too exposed. I want to do something worthwhile and not just get it arrested by so much coverage. By the time the next year had come around, we were also hosting them for each night of Ramadan. And we did a story of the Washington Post, and it blew up from there. So if you look up, me under Muslim-Jewish dialogue, you're going to see, not just from the effect of making news, but helping demonstrate a new model. We were on Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, Al Hura, Saudi TV. We're helping people see the Abrahamic faiths act in accordance with Abrahamic hospitality and grow understanding and relationships. There are still people that when my friend Muhammad is on the Hajj, he runs into who ask about me because they saw me in that setting and it stood out to them as important. And I'm very proud of that work. Anytime that the communities have empowered us to lead forward, it's not like, you ever get 100% unanimity of opinion about what you're doing, but that sure felt like I was doing some of the most important work. But at this particular moment in my career, I'm really enjoying all of the young people who are around the age where they're mapping out a shift in their early career, or they're getting married, or they're trying to respond to a certain dilemma. And because I've been in Cleveland the longest, that means I've known the kid who's 25 since they were 8 or 9. And I'm in a perfect position to just be a resource and a caring friend the way my rabbi has been to me.
Talk to me about, a more specific moment that you kind of realized, like, oh, wow, we just came together and it's going to work. Was there a moment like that for you?
More than one. This is the rich tapestry of the staff and clergy teams of both congregations. It took a minute to get organized around it, but particularly when we came around this past year to our second High Holy Days, where we learned from all the things that we had in the first. It doesn't mean that during the first we were raw, but we voted in March. The High Holy Days were in September. We're doing all kinds of work for our institutions, including closing, moving, and all that. It scrunched the time in. So I was really proud this past year, the High Holy Days. New initiatives and not just smush together the programs of the two previous congregations. And that happened due to what I would like to, you heard me already say, I'm known for cultivating strong teamwork. That happened because each of us gave something or tried something a different way or explored something. I knew that I was in a different space because this was my last service on the pulpit as its senior rabbi. So, but that didn't mean that I couldn't help cover something else too, because it would be covering something, trying some new experiment for a future plan. And it was great. So, and that's also a time of maximum need. So it's great when you can really expand the offerings, have things go smoothly and even more smoothly than it did a few months in. So you're showing everybody you're learning. And that was very rewarding. I would say that, let me think of a few others. The work that we do around caring community is both an embrace of our individual community and our families, but also organizations and groups that we can reach out to uniquely because we have a large synagogue and we have schools and programs. So it's been a thrill to see us highlight important work. Examples range from this past year we had a speaker from a group called Interact who works on suicide prevention. In addition to the importance of people being highlighted what's involved with suicide prevention at a service, we were raising people's awareness of some of the tools and some of the organizations in the community and letting people know that our community is a safe place to talk and that we're responsive to mental health issues that people are facing. it's one thing to hear that in a speech. It's another thing to cultivate it by really just not making things that might otherwise carry stigma or shame less so. And I will add that very early on in the merger, we officially merged in July of 24, so we're still within the first year since October 7th. And Anshe Chesed, our previous temple, we had a beginning relationship occurring with a kibbutz in southern Israel called Kibbutz Sufa. That's not the Jewish Federation's kibbutz, it's a different one, but we had begun to support some things there. Anyway, very early in our work together, our clergy, our lay leaders, and community came together, and we hosted 8 women from Kibbutz Sufa to come here for a chance to get acquainted with us, B, respite from their families and from the war and from the situation. A lot of them had suffered losses, and to peak and raise our awareness by doing some programs that will help people understand more about the effects on that part of Israel, but also helping them explore Jewish life somewhere else. Because, you can get so focused on the place where you are when you're going through trauma. So that is such an interesting and important area to tap into in terms of people's compassion for the trying events in the world. And I'm very proud of the way that we have addressed and incorporated our concern for an enduring peace in Israel and for Palestinians, and clearly now for the wider Middle East. And I'm glad that the first commitment that I made from the bima of this congregation was to that kibbutz for whatever it needs, including what I imagine will be us bringing a Sefer Torah of ours to them, or whatever else they need. But that was something that I thought, hey, as you're rebuilding your chapel, you should know whatever you need, we have. That was early, again, we merged in July, and that program happened like in August or early September. Community really came out for it, was really exploring. It was great to see that happen. And those are just, I'm only naming a few examples, but it feels really good. And for me, the merger also is a different story because my wife grew up at the Temple-Tifereth Israel. My mother-in-law, who just passed away last June, she was here since she was 2 years old. I got married at our University Circle location, which is now the Maltz Performing Arts Center, by Rabbi Klein, who I worked with for a couple of years now on my team. And so for me, being able to bring together the cultures of these communities and put my full-time efforts towards the kind of planting the early seeds of this congregation is great. I'm thrilled that they've came through the rabbinic search process, and that's clearly something else to be proud of. We did a very solid national search and chose an incredible successor who I know will build on our future going forward. And you'll have the chance to speak to him too.
Now that you're retired, how do you plan on filling your time? What's the future hold for you?
My initial focus is just on strengthening my physical and mental health, because the strain of full-time work, let alone the strain of full-time work while rehabilitating from cancer treatment side effects, has weakened me. And so I'm just spending a lot of time getting the support, the therapies, and physical and mental health help to help me just kind of develop a better outlook. Yeah. And so I'm really grateful for that. I'm exploring various activities to be involved with, but I'm looking forward right now to just continuing to exhale.
Much needed rest.